Hello, this is Sir Alexander, and this is part 2 of my Protoss racial overview, this in which I am going to show you what the different units do and what the different texts for the different units are. So I'm going to go ahead and start some of these texts researching so I can show you these. This should be a fairly short video in comparison, so what I'm going to show you here is what the units are and what they hard counter and what they soft counter. So I will start with the gateway units. Your Zealot is your standard unit. These guys just kind of jog around the map, and they are a melee unit. So if I want to run up and attack somebody, they're going to do it with their hands. Whap, 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 whap. Now, I do have charge researched. These units are a hard counter to Zerglings and Marines and most early game light units. They're also good against Stalkers if the player doesn't micro. If you've got more than they do Zealot front line, then they're pretty good. Now, Zealots are a unit that you'll pretty much be producing all game unless you're going all air, because your Stalkers will need to have a wall off. Your Stalkers are the next unit. They are a ranged unit, which, as the term says, they have a long-ranged attack, and with this, they are fairly susceptible. They do a lot of damage, but they don't do a lot of damage really fast. So if you have melee units attack the Stalkers, then they will be able to defeat them fairly easily. Units like Zerglings will defeat Stalkers, and Zealots will. So what you want to do is have a Zealot front line, so that when you attack, the Zealots are in the front here, making a wall off so that units can't get back to the Stalkers. So you'll usually want an even mix of Stalkers and Zealots. Now, sentries. These little guys here are sentries. These are your early game casters. These guys have 3 abilities: Force Field, Guardian Shield, and Hallucination. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Guardian Shield first, because that's the easiest explained. A Guardian Shield has this little shield up, and what this does is all incoming range damage does 2 less damage. So this is a really handy thing to have if you're going up against a bunch of ranged units, just to pop that up, and it decreases the damage by 2. Now, this does not overlap. If you have 2 Guardian Shields, it doesn't do it by 4, so they do not overlap, as cool as that would be. I'm going to go ahead just a moment here while I start producing some other units to show off these cool overpowered units that the Protoss have. And I need more Vespian gas for that guy. Now, oh, and no, I'm not playing against a real human. These guys are just, it's a stupid computer. Now, you have 2 other abilities as the Protoss, and let me get to a ramp to show you this. So I'm going to go ahead and run up this ramp. You have Force Field and Hallucination. So you see the Stalkers and the Sentries are long-range units, though the Sentries only have a range of 5, Stalkers have a range of 6. Now Stalkers, I forgot to mention that, Stalkers are a ranged unit, and they are a hard counter against a lot of armored units. Stalkers do 10 damage and 14 against armor. They're very good against some light units like Marines. They're good against Zerglings if you have a wall off. Oh wait, no, I have a cannon wall off, so I'm fine. What they are not good against is, if they're by themselves, they're bad against Zealots, they're bad against Zerglings, and they are uber bad against Marauders. Marauders will tear these things to bits. They're also bad against anti-armor units, such as tanks and, what's the other one? Immortals. They are bad against siege tanks. Siege tanks are not a hard counter, it's a soft counter. They're not really bad. So you have 2 other abilities here. Hallucination, which here. So what you do is you click on Hallucination. This you have to research, and then you can hallucinate any unit you want. So I'm going to hallucinate a Phoenix because I want to scout. So I'm going to hallucinate this Phoenix, and now this hallucinated Phoenix is going to go scout for me. Now, it can't actually do damage. It can attack, but it doesn't do any damage, and it's got a time limit. Hallucinations live for however long that bar is, but they don't actually do damage. But the enemy cannot see whether this is a hallucination or not. So I'm going to go ahead and scout the enemy's base, and I'm going to see what their tech is. And this is the Zerg base, and now you can see Zerg. Hallucinations also take more damage per shot, and they die easily. Like that. So that is the hallucination. This can be used a lot of different ways in confusing your opponent. You could hallucinate Colossus when you're going air, and then they'll do a big anti-ground army when you're actually getting air, or you can do all sorts of different things with this. Now, the other ability is the most often used one with the Sentry. Again, these are your early game casters enabled by your Cybernetics Core, and that is the Force Field. And the are just amazing. You can do all sorts of things because this lasts for a good 20 seconds, I believe. Something else that you can do is suppose your zealots get killed and you don't have enough you don't have any melee units, so now all the Zerglings, all these zealots are charging to come kill you. Well, now they can't get to you, and your ranged units can shoot them while they stupidly stand there. So this is a really cool ability that has a lot of uses. The Stalkers also have ability that you can research. This is the Blink ability. And that is another amazing ability that you can do really, really cool. And let it recharge here, and I will show you again some of the awesome things that you can do. Now, suppose that I was to come... I say these zealots are bad guys, and I was going to attack these stalkers. So I'm going to go ahead and tell them to attack move onto these stalkers. So these stalkers are going to be fighting with them. They're attacking. So he's losing health. As soon as he gets to low health, they're just going to blink away and run. Now, I actually did that wrong, but allow me to show you again here in just a moment. Okay, say that these zealots are coming to them. They're going to come up and they're going to run and attack them. What you can do is my stalkers will be fighting with these zealots. So my stalkers are going to start shooting at these zealots right about now. They're going to be shooting and shooting and shooting. As soon as they get to this guy, I'm going to blink back. Now the zealots come for this guy. He's going to blink away. Then they're going to come for this one, and he's going to blink away. Meanwhile, these two are still shooting, and this one's recharged. And now he blinks off the high ground. So now to get him, they have to run all the way down. This is some of the micro that you will see with Stalkers if you're good at it. Stalker micro is a great thing to learn, especially since Stalkers can shoot ground and air. Stalkers are also a good anti-air unit. They do very well against Mutalisks, Void Ray, Phoenix, Viking. They do extremely well against pretty much all air units. They don't do well against Vikings if they're in ground mode. Okay, we are now going to move on to more advanced Warp Gate units. There is the High Templar and the Dark. I will show you these two, and then we'll move on to the Robotics Bay. These two are both specialty units that you have to build both the Cybernetics Core and then their special tech building for. And then for High Templars, you have to research it. High Templars, you have three abilities: Feedback, Psionic Storm, and Archon Warp. And I will show you. I'm just gonna go ahead and meander over to the enemy base to show you. Okay, there are some bad guys. I'm gonna show you Psystorm first because it's the coolest. So I'm gonna go ahead and Psystorm that Hydralisk, and as you can see, I did a lot of damage and almost killed him. Now here's an enemy roach. Let me go ahead and Psystorm him. They don't do as much damage against the roaches because the roaches are units. But if you look here, my Dark Templar are destroying these guys because they are cloaked units. That is an Overseer, which is an Detector, but my Dark Templars are cloaked units, so these guys can run around and are invisible. As you can see, that Hydralisk wasn't attacking me, unless there is a Detector in the area. So look, I'm going to come kill these guys. Dark Templars do massive amounts of damage, but have very low health. So here comes an Overseer, so now I can be seen, and my guys will die very quickly because they have very little health. But they're great if your enemy does not have detection. Now you also have a few other abilities as the High Templar: Feedback and Archon Warp. I will go ahead and get an Archon Warping in. This is an ability that the Protoss have, I think, by themselves. These units are going to warp in and make another unit. Now let me go ahead and run down here and find somebody. Now, as you can see, this guy has energy. That energy means that he can do special abilities. So what I'm going to do is use Feedback on him, and I just barely got that off. What Feedback does is it drains all the energy that he might have had. So, and then I think that that's everything except for the Archon. Archon is just an uber powerful, great unit. It tears through ground units, tears through air units. It does 25 damage, 10 plus versus biological. So it's great versus like Marines, and it's excellent against Mutalisks, Zerglings. It gets splash damage. It's just an overpowered, awesome unit. It only has 10 health, but a shield. Oh yeah, that's another ability of the Protoss units, is that they have shield. You have 80 health and 80 shield on the Stalkers, so I can lose 80 shield. I can take 80 damage and then leave the fight, and my shields will recharge. Next up, we're going to go under the robotics bay. You have a couple units from the robotics bay. Here's the warp prism. The warp prism is a transport, so I'm going to go ahead and put this guy in the transport so I can fly him over and drop him. That's pretty much all there is to the warp prism, except for this ability, phasing mode. I'm going to turn this guy into... Hang on. Actually, let me do it somewhere else. I don't already have power. I'm going to fly over here. Remember that Protoss have to build in the realm of power. So I'm going to turn him into phasing mode, so now he can't move, but he's producing power. The ramifications are that you can sneak this into somebody's base, and A, you can warp in units because you have power, or B, you can plant cannons. And here's an awesome Protoss trick that most people do not know. You can go into somebody's base, plant cannons, and then plant pylons to give them power, and then turn this guy off and fly away. And all of this will continue warping in, and once these pylons are in, they will power those cannons. Because Protoss units have to be powered to work. So, like, let me just go ahead and show you this. Okay, see these cannons right here? They are unpowered. They can't attack, they can't do anything, they can't move. Now, the two other units, Colossus. This is, you get upgrades for siege range. He does a massive amount of damage, and he also gets splash damage. So check this. See that everything in that laser is going to get hit, and this is the Immortal. This is an uber-powered Okay, so you see this Colossus is going to be getting all of that splash damage on those units, and he's also got a very long range. And, get this, he is so tall, he can walk up and down cliffs all day long. This also has a disadvantage because it means that air units can't attack him because he's so massively tall. The Immortal is a anti-ground unit only, so he can't attack air, as can the Colossus. But he does get 50 damage against armored units. So as you can see, he's going to eat these roaches for breakfast. Now, the Colossus the Immortal, see that shield that's coming up? That means that the incoming damage is nullified so long as he has energy. Now that he doesn't, he's going to take the full amount of damage. But all incoming damage that does over a certain amount is going to be nullified. And I'm going to back up because I don't want to lose you yet. So that Colossus is just going to own him. There we go. But smaller units like Marines that do less damage actually will end up doing more damage. So this unit is a hard counter against things like siege tanks, stalkers, and marauders, but is countered by Marines and Zerglings. So for Colossus, High Templar, Stalkers, Immortals, you always want to have a Zealot line. So you'll have, when you go into attack, you'll have a Zealot front line, and these guys behind that line. So that's what good the Zealots are. You'll really always want to have those. These are Observers. These are Cloaked Scouts. And I'm not exactly sure what my time is, so join me again for part 2 of this unit over.